everybody, I'm Dr. Corrine. I'm the person that you all try to avoid by eating an apple a day. But unlike most doctors that you have to wait over months to see, I'm actually here to help you when you need me.
Year 2020 started under the shadow of Wuhan coronavirus. I know you're concerned, and you have good reason to be. Unlike bacteria, which we can see and attack with antibiotics, the coronavirus has been with us forever, or so it seems, since first learning about it in 1884. The virus was founded when French microbiologist Charles Chamberlain invented a filter with pores smaller than bacteria. He found that solutions passed through the Chamberlain filter could still cause diseases. That's how we first met public enemy number one, the virus. Our first look at the virus happened in 1931, when German engineer Ernst Ruska and Max Knoll used an electron microscope and created the first image. Later that year, American pathologist Ernest Goodpasture and Alice Woodruff grew influenza in fertilized chicken eggs. In 1935, the virus was separated into two parts, a protein part and an RNA part. Since then, over 5,000 species of virus have been discovered. You may wonder, why should we be so concerned about this tiny virus? Well, let me give you some examples of the worst killers in history. Smallpox caused 500 million deaths. Plague, 240 million deaths. Influenza, 50 million deaths. Cholera, 40 million deaths. And HIV, 32 million deaths. So, did I get your attention now? Bacteria and viruses both can spread like wildfire. In the 14th century, the plague, known as Black Death, eliminated 30% to 60% of Europe's population. And we all know what HIV has done to society today. As a doctor, I'm often on the first line of defense battling these diseases. But I have to admit, we still don't really know much about them. Often, people ask, are viruses living things? And I have to tell them, technically, they actually are not. They are complicated assemblies of molecules, including proteins, nucleic acids, lipids, and carbohydrates, and on their own, they can do nothing. That is, until they enter a living cell, such as the living cells within people. Without living cells, viruses would not be able to multiply. Therefore, viruses are not living things in and of themselves. So yes, they are a lot like zombies. The only way they can survive is to get inside you and turn your healthy cells into their host. All right, so where do they come from? A popular regressive theory said they once have been small cells that parasitized larger cells, and over time, the genes that were not required by their parasitism were lost. Another theory, the escape hypothesis, theorizes that viruses came from plasmids, pieces of DNA that can move between cells. This theory claims that viruses evolved from bits of DNA and RNA that have escaped from the genes of a larger organism or from bacteria. Some believe viruses were created at the same time human lives were created, the so-called coevolution theory. It kind of makes sense if you believe God created all life form. But remember, viruses are not considered living things. But none of these theories completely hold water. The regressive hypothesis does not explain why even the smallest of cellular parasites do not resemble viruses in any way. The escape hypothesis does not explain the structures of virus particles. The coevolution theory simply contravenes the definition of viruses. So, The only thing we truly know about viruses is that we really don't know much about them at all. Although we can't really call viruses living things, they do actually behave like most living things in that they want to grow and expand. We do know how some of the known viruses spread. Influenza is spread through the air by droplets of moisture when people cough or sneeze. Viruses such as norovirus are transmitted by the fecal-oral route, which involves the contamination of hands, food, and water. Rotavirus, on the other hand, is often spread by direct contact with infected children. The human immunodeficiency virus, commonly known as HIV, is transmitted by bodily fluids transferred during sex. Other viruses, such as the dengue virus, are spread by blood-sucking insects. Now, if you somehow come in contact with a virus, as you can see in this picture, we call this a virion, a gene made from DNA or RNA, which is surrounded by a capsid made of protein molecules. They are usually 20 to 300 nanometers, much smaller than average bacteria size of 1,000 nanometers. In 2003, bacteria-sized megaviruses were found. These viruses can actually be 1,000 times larger than influenza viruses. But size doesn't mean anything. Even a small virus can cause terrible harm. A virus starts to attack by first attaching to its host cell. Then it releases or injects its genetic instructions into that host cell. This injected genetic material then recruits the host cell's enzymes. Then the host cell's enzymes make parts for more new virus particles. It's called duplication. Then the virus assembles the parts into new viruses, and the new virus breaks free from the host cell and starts the process all over again. What do you think would happen to the host cells after this raid? There's a fancy name for it: cytopathic effect. Most host cells die through apoptosis, which is when cell lysis occurs. That is, the cell either bursts or the cell's surface membrane changes. It's also been referred to as cell suicide. But how do these viruses find their host cells? Well, like a clever thief, they know which pocket to pick. For example, human immunodeficiency virus, HIV, infects only human T cells because its surface protein, GP120, can only react with CD4. Virus-damaged cells are like houses without foundations. They can no longer stand on their own. Papillomavirus is an established cause of cancer. When a cell's DNA is damaged by a virus and the cell can no longer repair itself, apoptosis is triggered. It is called suicide because it leads to destruction of the damaged DNA by the cell itself. Because viruses want to multiply and survive, they do not want to live in a short-lived host. HIV can stay in someone's body for 10 years without symptoms. Some other viruses can kill their hosts in a very short period of time. Because viruses have only a few sets of RNA compared with normal cells that have hundreds of sets of DNA, viruses can mutate quickly. Some mutations lead to resistance to antiviral drugs. This can be a result of recombination or reassortment. When this happens with influenza viruses, pandemics can result. Scientists have been puzzled by the fact that some viruses kill their hosts so quickly that it actually kills its own chance to survive. Some thought it may be because it's a new mutation that has not yet prefaced its attack plan. The Marburg virus, discovered in 1967, killed 90% of infected patients. 228 people perished during 1998 to 2000 Congo epidemic, and 227 people died during the 2004-2005 Angola outbreak out of 252 of those infected. The Marburg virus was found in the fruit bat but caused little harm to the host bats. However, when it jumped from bat to humans, it became the most deadly virus on Earth. In November 2002, a farmer in China became the first SARS patient. China reported to the World Health Organization the outbreak on February 10, 2003, when they had 305 cases. Because of the lack of knowledge and delay in reporting this epidemic, an outbreak erupted in Hong Kong in March of 2003. Then Thailand followed. Before the World Health Organization's global alert, the disease spread to Vietnam, Singapore, and then Canada. With strict quarantine taken in many infected areas, the fast-spreading SARS was slowly put under control. But that was only after 8,098 people were infected in 17 countries and 774 deaths were reported. Beijing's mayor and China's health minister failed to report casualties. As a result, they both lost their jobs for mishandling the matter. The Wuhan coronavirus is a new type of virus, the likes of which we have never dealt with. It overtook China's fourth largest city in less than a month and took the unthinkable measure on January 23, 2020, the quarantine of Wuhan and nearby cities. Suddenly, a metropolis of 10 million people became a ghost town. Is it enough? If you ask me, nothing is ever enough. When it comes to your health and mine, the government and the doctors can only do so much. We all need to avoid public places in order to reduce the chance of being infected. Washing hands is absolutely essential, as is using hand sanitizer if no water is available. Some people ask me if I feel the quarantine should start sooner. My answer truly is, I don't know. I don't have the information presented to the decision maker. I do know that it's a difficult decision because we are all dealing with an unknown virus. Can we defeat the virus? I am hopeful we can. And because we have won many challenges before this, I'm confident we can do it again. Of course, we all must work together with each other and not against each other.
Living healthy means living a life you deserve. So this is Corinne, your friendly doctor on the web, signing off. We'll see you all next time.